I will pay you $1 million if you can show me a bad Chadwick Boseman performance. I'm waiting. What's going on, you guys? James here, and today we are going to dive into every single Chadwick Boseman performance, and I'm going to rank them from good, great, to legendary, because there is no bad Chadwick Boseman performance. Now, if you missed it, I did review Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. It is right at the top of the screen. It is an excellent film as well, with one of the best, if not the best, Chadwick Boseman performance, but I will tell you where that ranks, along with all of his other performances. Before we get into that though, guys, if it is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James, where I do dive into movie reviews and reactions all of the time. So if you don't want to miss out, go ahead and hit the big red button below and help us get to our next goal of 5,000. Because of your love and support, we finally eclipsed 3,000 subscribers, and I am so thankful. Tap on the bell, smash that like button, and get loud in the comments as well, guys, and show me your ranking list and tell me which Chadwick Boseman performance is your favorite. Okay guys, let's waste no more time and get right into this tier list. Now, going through all 15 of Chadwick Boseman's movies was a really hard task, because all of them, or I should say all of his performances, were either really good or just incredibly legendary. Now, all of the movies were not the greatest, I won't lie to you. Some of his earlier work, marred by a lot of bad direction and writing, and even some of the movies he starred in later on in his career, some of them weren't the greatest either. However, what I will say is that he is consistently the best actor in all of these movies. But let's start all the way from his first feature-length debut, which is The Express in 2008. He plays Floyd Little and is in, I think, one scene for less than 3 minutes. However, he's incredibly charismatic, and he has this sort of charm to him where you can kind of tell, okay, he's getting into his own little groove. In the movie itself, if you're a sports fan, you'll probably enjoy it, but it's not the greatest biopic, and of course, it's not about Chadwick Boseman himself and his character. So what I will say is, Chadwick Boseman's performance here was good. Alrighty. So guys, let's get right into the next film, which is The Kill Hole. This is one movie that we won't spend too much time on because, boy, it was tough to watch. And I'm not just saying it because, well, the film itself is dealing with some heavy subject matter. It's because the movie is just really bad. But Chadwick Boseman, again, shows that he can command the screen in a very emotional way. He plays Carter, a military veteran turned mercenary, and is the only good thing about this film. Again, everything else about this movie is really bad. But his performance here, not terrible, not great, but it is good. So the third movie of his career is the one that put him on the map, guys. It's one that I actually watched recently for the very first time. He plays Jackie Robinson in 42. This film, which debuted in 2013, was the first performance that got him on everyone's radar. Jackie Robinson is a really inspirational baseball player and human being. He did so much not only for sports here in America, but across the world. So this performance blew me away. The movie itself is a better biopic than I anticipated, because I thought it might get a little melodramatic, and it did, but I think it worked as well. And honestly, guys, there is no question where his performance as Jackie Robinson goes, and that is in the legendary tier. This is not only his first real leading role in Hollywood, but man, to turn in a performance like that, you knew he was destined for greatness. And he said, why not go for my third sports movie? And that comes via Draft Day in 2014. He is not the main character here. He's in a supporting role. It's interesting to see that this is the movie that came out after 42, because you would think after seeing him play Jackie Robinson, he is going to be a lead in any movie that came after it. Unfortunately, not in Draft Day, and honestly, unfortunately for the movie itself, because he plays Vontae Mack, who eventually becomes a highly valued college prospect for the potential #1 draft pick in the NFL. This is the kind of role where I feel like he would thrive in if they gave him more screen time, and they didn't. They reserved that for Kevin Costner and everybody else, and the movie is not very good. It's not terrible either, so it wasn't tough to get through. However, there was a lot of untapped potential with this film. However, I did like his performance as Vontae Mack. The only thing is, it isn't a great performance considering his entire body of work. But this next performance is one that isn't great, it isn't even good, but it is absolutely legendary, and that's Chadwick Boseman as James Brown in Get On Up. It's a film that I didn't even see in 2014. I actually saw this film not even 2 weeks ago, and I was blown away by how much he was able to captivate me as James Brown. It's a tough role to play. James Brown is all over the place emotionally. He's charismatic, but he does an excellent job here. And I love that Chadwick could bring the character down to an emotional level too. It's heartbreaking at times, and he completely loses himself in the role, even down to the dancing as well, which is kind of neat. And they said he didn't do all the singing, he did some, and we know that boy can sing. But what I will tell you is that he's got the moves as well. I loved seeing Chadwick in this movie, and this is arguably his best performance, but we'll talk about that at the end of this video. So you know where I am putting Chadwick Boseman as James Roan, right at the top in the legendary tier. So his next performance is also a confusing role because it seems that this was the early trend for his career. It's captivate you with one performance and then star in a supporting role for a film that is otherwise terrible. And that is Gods of Egypt in a nutshell. Guys, in 2016, this movie was not even on my radar, but I saw some really cheap promos at the time, and I didn't even see it in theaters. But what I will tell you is that if you haven't seen it, it's not really worth your time. Chadwick Boseman is probably the best thing about the movie because he is very out of the norm. And what I mean by that is because he has taken roles before this movie that kind of ground him as an actor. And in this film, he plays Toth. And, well, let's just say there's multiple Chadwick Bosemans in one scene, and that is the best part about this film. Everything else is really, really awful, and he's chewing up scenes and the scenery. He is very much in a different element here, and like I said, this isn't a great film or a good film or even a halfway decent movie, but he brings a different type of charm to the film, so I'm gonna put him in the good category. That performance isn't great, but man, I can't wait to talk about this next one because you already know what it is. Chadwick Boseman is probably best known as T'Challa. The thing is, I wanted to combine this role in this performance because I didn't want to have to rank Civil War, Infinity War, Black Panther, and Endgame because he doesn't get the most screen time in everything outside of Black Panther. But what I will say is that this is a character that I didn't necessarily know too much about in the comics, but when he was brought to life by Chadwick, I can't see anyone else play Black Panther, so kudos to Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige for saying they won't recast the role. And I love the fact that Chadwick was able to take a film about a comic book character and cause a massive revolution in a way. He was able to not only just captivate audiences that could feel a personal connection to the film, but he was able to say, hey, you're not a comic book fan? Well, come on in and you're going to be a fan of this comic book hero. And I love his subtleness in the film. He has a great charismatic personality to him, and it is just otherworldly. And I can't say enough about his performance as Black Panther, but what I will say is every time I see him portray this character when I rewatch Black Panther, I want to run through a wall for Chadwick Boseman. So you know what I'm going to put him? I'm putting Black Panther in the legendary tier. Where else was he going to go? Alright, let's move right on to Message from the King, a Netflix original film that went under the radar for a lot of people. It dropped the same year as Civil War and Gods of Egypt. He was very busy in 2016. But Message from the King is one that doesn't get talked about as much as his other performances, but he does play a pretty convincing action kind of hero in a way. He's an anti-hero because the motives for this character and the way he gets things done are a little questionable, but I do like that he plays Jacob King and he's on the hunt for his sister's killers. This is a film that is shot in a very unique way. The direction is interesting. Sometimes it works and a lot of times it doesn't, but the film, if you happen to catch it on Netflix, you're not going to be upset with it. It is very graphic, and this is, again, Chadwick playing a very commanding type of personality. He does not take ish from anyone. He plays a strong character that I grew to love as the movie went on, and honestly, even though the film is not one that you'll probably want to make time for, if it comes on, watch it. If not, it's okay. His performance here was pretty darn good. So I'm putting him in his performance in the good tier. I wonder who gets in the great tier first, and that might be this next performance, guys. In 2017's Marshall, Chadwick Boseman has this cool, calm, and collected demeanor about him as the great Thurgood Marshall. If you don't know much about Thurgood Marshall, what I will say is that the film overall doesn't necessarily center on Thurgood Marshall as a character. Josh Gad plays this other attorney named Sam Friedman, and the movie kind of gives a little bit too much shine to his character rather than Thurgood Marshall. This isn't a traditional biopic because most of those start as the character's youth and then they go from the teenage years all the way to the adult years usually, and that's not Marshall, and I was a little disappointed by that, but man, Chadwick Boseman blew me away as Thurgood Marshall. So what I will say is that this isn't a legendary performance because again, he's more of a supporting character at times in this movie, which is a little weird because the film was called Marshall, but I'm putting Chadwick in the great tier. So after Marshall, Chadwick Boseman starred in Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, and then 21 Bridges, which is the role we're going to talk about here. In 2019, I saw this at a press screening and I was so excited for it. However, he is arguably, not even arguably, he is the best part about this movie. Everything else was really lackluster, from the action all the way to the writing and even the direction here. 21 Bridges is a very C-level type action movie and the plot is just really questionable. I did not care for it at all, but he doesn't do a terrible job as playing this lead that is very troubled. He's a cop, but he also wants justice in other ways because he understands there's some tomfoolery going on within his department. So I don't want to spend too much time on 21 Bridges because these last two performances I really want to hone in on, but Chadwick Boseman here in this movie is good. But let me tell you something, these last two roles are just out of this world, and it starts with The Five Bloods. This year Netflix released a banger and Spike Lee did an absolute amazing job. This is a movie that will get up for some awards. It's got to be nominated at least for Best Direction, and Chadwick probably will get a Best Supporting Actor nomination because he is amazing as Stormin' Norman. This is the first role that he took since The Kill Hole where he is portraying a soldier in any capacity, and even though he's not in this film too often, The Five Bloods, the core of this story surrounds Stormin' Norman. I have not seen him in a visceral role like this leading up to The Five Bloods, and he is absolutely stealing the show whenever he was on screen. He wasn't just a generic soldier number one, and honestly left me with my jaw on the ground many times. It's a poignant, strong, and impactful performance that deserves, for me, to go in the great tier. Now, I was going to put him in the legendary tier, but leading up to this video and kind of thinking about all of his performances as a whole, I think that Chadwick Boseman was great in this film, but he wasn't in it nearly enough for me to really categorize it as legendary. But this last performance, the final performance of his very short but promising career, one that is legendary, no doubt about it, that was his performance as Levy in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. His performance as Levy moved me in a very unique way. This was probably a very hard role for him to take as well because he is a man of God, and Levy is a godless man. However, he does have a past where his mother was, well, put through hell and back, and he lost his faith. But man, there are so many excellent moments in this film, and this is really Chadwick Boseman's movie. He absolutely brings every ounce of his excellence to this role as Levy, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again, this is the best performance I have seen in 2020. Not only was it a near-perfect singular performance, this was an amazing bookend to a career, yes, short-lived, but one that not only impacted individual viewers, but collectively, the world has been taken aback by Chadwick Boseman, and he is one of the best, if not arguably in that top tier of actors that has ever done it. He's just amazing. We lost him way too soon, but God had other plans, and what I will say is that Levy is one role that will forever be legendary. I think that he wins the Best Actor award. I kid you not. I think at the Oscars, we're going to do a prediction video, but I think that he wins an Oscar for his performance as Levy in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. So there you have it, guys. That's my tier list ranking of every single Chadwick Boseman performance. Let's go through it again in case you might have skipped along. In the good tier, we have The Express, The Kill Hole, him as Vontae Mack in Draft Day. You have Chadwick Boseman's performance in Gods of Egypt. Then you have Message from the King and 21 Bridges. In the great tier, we only have two films here. That's Chadwick Boseman as Thurgood Marshall and Stormin' Norman in The Five Bloods. But in the legendary tier, this is one that I think I will live by till the day I die. It's his performances as Jackie Robinson, James Brown, T'Challa, and Levy. But like I said, guys, I want to know where you have each of his performances ranked, which is your favorite, and which one is closer to the bottom for you. But guys, there is no bad Chadwick Boseman performance. Even though I was ranking them based on those three tiers, he is just one of those actors that for me is one of my favorite of all time, but I recognize objectively that he's one of the best to ever have lived. He is just amazing. He blew me away in every single role. It's kind of crazy because the film could be really bad, but when Chadwick Boseman comes up on the scene, I am blown away. Like, my eyes widen, I get into the mood, and then of course scene transitions and, well, the rest of the movie is kind of crap. But what I will say is that Chadwick Boseman was that type of actor. He brought a different type of aura around him. The atmosphere is different when Chadwick Boseman was in the room, so I really loved going through his entire filmography. It was just such a joy. But again, guys, if you don't want to miss out on the rest of the content for this week, go ahead, hit the big red button below and tap on that bell. I'm ranking every single episode from season 2 of The Mandalorian, and we got my Wonder Woman 1984 review coming, The Midnight Sky, and We Can Be Heroes. I can't wait to round out everything leading up to the holiday weekend. And if you haven't, smashed that like button and get loud again in the comments, and let's have a conversation about this. Guys, thank you so much again for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening.